Hey friends, today I want to share my English learning journey with you. It wasn't always easy, but it was one of the best experiences of my life. I know that many of you are also learning English, and sometimes it feels difficult. Maybe you feel nervous when speaking, or you don't understand native speakers. Maybe you have tried to learn, but you feel stuck. I understand that feeling because I was just like you. When I started learning English, I didn't know where to begin. I had so many questions in my mind. What is the best way to learn? Should I start with grammar? Should I memorize a lot of words? What if I make mistakes? These questions made me feel lost. But today, when I look back, I see how much I have improved. I want to tell you my story because I know that if I can do it, you can too. So, sit back, relax, and let me take you on this journey with me. I will tell you everything. My struggles, my mistakes, my small victories, and the lessons I learned. By the end of this story, I hope you will feel motivated and confident about your own English learning. Because trust me, learning English is not just about studying books. It's about finding joy in the process. I still remember the day I decided to learn English. It wasn't a special day. There was no big event, no big decision. It was just a normal day. I was sitting in my room, watching a movie, and everything seemed fine. But then, something happened. The characters in the movie were talking, and I was reading the subtitles at the bottom of the screen. I wasn't really listening to their voices. I was just reading. At first, I didn't even think about it. But suddenly, I had a thought. I wish I could understand this without subtitles. That thought stayed in my mind. I paused the movie and sat there for a moment. I imagined what it would be like if I didn't need to read the subtitles. What if I could just listen and understand everything? What if I could enjoy movies, TV shows, and songs in English just like native speakers? And then I had an even bigger thought. English is not just for movies, it's everywhere. At that moment, I started thinking about all the ways English could change my life. I could read books that were not available in my language. I could watch interviews, listen to podcasts, and learn new things from people all over the world. And most importantly, I could talk to people from different countries. I imagined myself traveling to different places, walking through the streets of a big city, and ordering food in a restaurant, all in English. I imagined making new friends, having deep conversations, and feeling confident in an international environment. It felt exciting. It felt like a dream. But then, reality hit me. I did not speak English. I mean, I knew a few words. I could say, hello, how are you, and thank you. But that wasn't enough. I couldn't watch a full movie without subtitles. I couldn't read an English book without stopping every 5 seconds to look up a word. I couldn't have a real conversation with someone in English. And that's when I realized the small problem. I didn't know how to start. Should I buy a grammar book? Should I memorize 1,000 words? Should I start watching English news, even if I didn't understand it? I had no idea. And that was the first challenge. Not learning English, but figuring out how to learn English. It was like standing at the bottom of a huge mountain, looking up. I wanted to reach the top, but I had no idea which path to take. And for a moment, that thought scared me. Maybe this is too difficult. Maybe I'm not smart enough. Maybe I will never learn. But deep inside, I knew something. If I don't start now, I will always stay in the same place. And I didn't want that. I wanted to move forward. I wanted to try. Even if I made mistakes, even if I failed, I wanted to at least give it a chance. So that day, I made a decision. I will learn English. I didn't know how yet, but I promised myself one thing. I will not give up. That was the beginning of my journey. A big dream, a small start. And what happened next? Well, that's another story. When I first started learning English, I felt excited and motivated. I had made a decision. I was going to learn this language no matter what. I believed that if I worked hard, I would improve quickly. I imagined myself speaking fluently in just a few months. But reality was very different. The moment I opened my first English book, I felt lost. Every page was full of words I didn't understand. I tried reading a simple paragraph, but I had to stop after almost every sentence to look up a word in the dictionary. It took me 30 minutes to read just one small page. I felt slow, and it was frustrating. Then I thought, maybe I should try watching videos in English instead. That seemed like a good idea. I went to YouTube, found a beginner-level English video, and pressed play. At first, I felt confident, but as soon as the people started talking, I was shocked. They were speaking so fast, I could only catch a few words here and there. Hello, today, English, but everything else sounded like a blur. I tried again with a different video. I slowed it down, I focused, but still I couldn't understand most of it. I felt terrible. I thought, how do people even learn English? It feels impossible. But the hardest part wasn't reading or listening. It was speaking. I remember the first time I tried to say a full sentence in English. I stood in front of the mirror and said, "My name is Emma." It felt strange. My tongue felt heavy, my words felt slow, and my pronunciation sounded wrong. I tried again. "My name is Emma." Still strange. Then I tried something harder. "I want to learn English." I could say the words, but something didn't feel right. The rhythm, the accent, the way native speakers said it. It was different. And the worst part? I felt scared of making mistakes. Even when I was alone, just talking to myself, I felt nervous. What if I was saying it completely wrong? What if someone heard me and laughed? That fear made me hesitate every time I tried to speak. And then came the real test. One day, I met an English speaker online. I wanted to practice, so I typed a message, "Can we talk?" They said yes. My heart started beating fast. I felt excited but also terrified. Then the call started. "Hello?" they said. I opened my mouth to reply, and nothing came out. I knew what I wanted to say. I had practiced it before, but my brain suddenly felt empty, and my tongue wouldn't move. After a few seconds of silence, I finally forced myself to say, I could hear my own voice shaking. I felt so embarrassed. The conversation continued, but it was painful. I kept forgetting words. I repeated myself, and sometimes I just smiled instead of speaking because I didn't know what to say. When the call ended, I felt completely defeated. That night, I sat on my bed and thought about everything. Maybe English is not for me. Maybe I'm just not good at languages. Maybe I should stop wasting my time. I felt so disappointed in myself. I had been studying, I had been trying, but still, I couldn't speak confidently. What was I doing wrong? Why was it so hard? For a few days, I felt lost. I didn't practice, I didn't watch English videos, I ignored my English books. I told myself, maybe I'm just not meant to learn English. But then, something changed. One day, I was scrolling through social media, and I saw a quote, "Every expert was once a beginner." I stared at that sentence for a long time, and then it hit me. Of course, I wasn't good at English yet. I was a beginner. I was expecting too much from myself. I wanted to be fluent in just a few months, but fluency takes time. Every single person who speaks English fluently today once struggled just like me. I thought about children. When they learn their first language, do they speak perfectly in the beginning? No. They make mistakes, they say words incorrectly, and they don't understand everything. But they keep trying, and one day, they start speaking naturally. I realized that making mistakes is part of learning, and at that moment, something inside me changed. I decided that I wouldn't give up. Even if it was slow, even if I made mistakes, even if it took years, I would keep going, because I had a dream. I wanted to learn English, and nothing was going to stop me. That was the moment my real learning journey began. After struggling for so long, I realized something important. I needed to change the way I was learning. I had spent too much time feeling frustrated, thinking that English was difficult. But instead of giving up, I decided to make learning fun. I told myself, no more boring grammar books, no more complicated rules that make my head hurt. I will learn English the way real people use it. That decision changed everything. Learning with music. The first thing I did was start listening to English songs. I picked songs that I liked, even if I didn't understand all the words. At first, it felt impossible. The singers were too fast, and their words sounded connected, like one long sentence. But I didn't give up. I found the lyrics online and followed along while listening. I tried to sing with the song, even if I got the words wrong. Some words were difficult, but I didn't stop. I kept listening, again and again. And soon, I noticed something amazing. I started recognizing words without looking at the lyrics. One day, I was walking down the street, and suddenly, my brain started singing an English song by itself. I hadn't even realized how much I had learned just by listening. I thought, wow, this is actually working. Watching cartoons, simple and fun. After music, I thought, what else can I do to learn English in a fun way? Then I had an idea. Cartoons. I remembered that cartoons are made for kids, so they use simple words and speak slowly. I found some popular cartoons in English and started watching. At first, I used subtitles in my language to understand the story, but soon, I switched to English subtitles. And finally, I tried watching without any subtitles at all. It was a little difficult, but I started understanding more and more. I learned new words without even trying. I didn't feel like I was studying, I was just enjoying the stories. I even started copying how the characters spoke. If a character said, "Oh no, that's amazing," I would pause the video and repeat after them. Oh no, that's amazing. I practiced their tone, their speed, and even their expressions. It was like playing a game. And the best part? I was finally speaking English without fear. Talking to myself in English. One day, I thought, why should I wait for someone to practice speaking? I can just talk to myself. So, I started doing something new. I spoke English to myself every day. When I woke up in the morning, I said, "Good morning, Emma. Today is going to be a great day." When I made breakfast, I said, "I am making eggs and toast. This looks delicious." When I went outside, I looked at the sky and said, "The weather is nice today." It felt a little strange at first, but then it became a habit. I wasn't just learning English. I was thinking in English. Before, I had always thought that learning English meant studying for hours every day, but that was too difficult. I always felt tired and gave up. So I changed my strategy. I started setting small goals. I told myself, I will learn just 5 new words every day. I will listen to one English song and sing along. I will watch one episode of a cartoon in English. I will talk to myself in English at least 3 times today. These were simple goals, but they made a big difference. Small steps every day helped me improve more than studying for hours and getting frustrated. Seeing the results. After a few weeks, something amazing happened. One day, I was watching a cartoon, and I suddenly understood a full sentence without subtitles. Another day, I was walking in the market, and I saw a word on a sign, and I knew what it meant. Then, something even bigger happened. I was singing along to an English song, and I realized that I wasn't reading the lyrics anymore. I knew the words. It was working. My new way of learning was actually helping me enjoy English. And that's when I realized learning English doesn't have to be boring. It can be fun, easy, and natural if you do it the right way. For the first time in my life, I felt confident. I wasn't just learning English. I was living it. And that was only the beginning. One day, as I was casually strolling through the park on a warm afternoon, enjoying the peace and quiet of nature around me, something unexpected and completely amazing happened that would change the way I thought about my English journey. I had been walking for a few minutes, lost in my thoughts, when suddenly, a tourist, a man who looked a bit confused and had a map in his hand, approached me. He looked like someone who had just arrived in the city and was trying to figure out where to go next. Without warning, he stopped right in front of me, and with a polite but slightly unsure expression, he asked, "Excuse me, do you know where the bus station is?" At that exact moment, it felt like time had slowed down, and my whole body froze. My heart skipped a beat, and my mind went completely blank. The words he had spoken were clear enough, but I couldn't seem to gather my thoughts fast enough to respond in English. For a split second, I considered pretending I didn't understand, or maybe just walking away. The fear of making a mistake and embarrassing myself in front of a stranger felt overwhelming. What if I said something wrong? What if I didn't remember the right words? But then, something inside me clicked. I had practiced for this moment. I had spent countless hours listening to English, watching videos, singing songs, and repeating sentences to myself, hoping that one day I would have the courage to speak. This was my moment to prove to myself that all that practice wasn't in vain. So, with trembling hands but a determined heart, I took a deep breath, gathered all the strength I could find, and said, "Yes, go straight and turn left. The bus station is near the park." I watched as the tourist's face lit up with a smile of relief. It was as if he had been waiting for someone to help him, and suddenly, I was the one who had come through. He looked at me, his eyes bright and filled with appreciation, and he said, "Thank you. Your English is very good." The words hit me like a wave of warmth and pride. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment that I had never felt before. My heart swelled with happiness and relief. I had done it. I had spoken in English to a stranger, and he had understood me perfectly. For years, I had been afraid of making mistakes when speaking English. But this experience proved that it wasn't about being perfect. It was about making an effort, trying, and connecting with others. As I walked away from that brief encounter, I felt like I was walking on air. The doubt and fear that had held me back for so long began to melt away, replaced by a new confidence I hadn't realized I had. I didn't need to be perfect. I didn't need to know every word or every grammar rule. All I needed was the courage to try, and that simple act of speaking had made all the difference. I had spoken in English, and someone had understood me. That was success in itself. At that moment, I realized that learning English wasn't just about memorizing vocabulary or following rules. It was about communication. It was about making connections with others, even when you're not sure you're saying things perfectly. That brief interaction in the park became a turning point in my English learning journey, and from that day forward, I looked at my language learning in a whole new way. No longer as a challenge to overcome, but as a beautiful opportunity to connect with the world. After that day in the park, everything changed for me. I had taken a big step by speaking English with someone, and while it felt like a huge achievement, I knew deep down that I wasn't done yet. The journey had only just begun. I kept practicing, speaking whenever I could, listening to English podcasts, watching movies, and even reading books, though it was still difficult. Yes, I continued making mistakes, but I no longer felt ashamed of them. In fact, the mistakes started to feel like valuable lessons rather than failures. The more mistakes I made, the more I learned, and the more confident I became. It wasn't long before I met someone who would change my perspective on learning English forever. This person wasn't just a teacher in the traditional sense, but someone whose words struck me deeply. I was sitting in a small cafe one afternoon, reading a book in English, when I noticed a woman at the next table. She was working on a laptop, and we struck up a conversation. Her name was Maria, and she was a language teacher. After we talked for a while about English and language learning, she said something that made me stop and think for a moment. She looked at me with a warm smile and said, "If you want to learn English, don't be afraid. Speak, listen, and enjoy the process." At that moment, her words resonated deeply with me. I had spent so much time worrying about making mistakes, fearing that I wasn't good enough or that I'd never be fluent. But here she was, telling me that the key to learning wasn't about being perfect. It was about enjoying the process and not letting fear hold me back. She explained that language learning is a journey, one that is filled with challenges, mistakes, and growth. But at the same time, it's a journey that should be embraced with joy, not stress. From that day forward, her advice became my golden rule. Speak, listen, and enjoy the process. No longer would I be afraid to speak out of fear of making mistakes. I would listen carefully to how people spoke and enjoy every opportunity to practice, no matter how small. It wasn't just about learning English anymore. It was about embracing the journey, the ups and the downs, the progress and the setbacks, and most importantly, the joy of learning something new every day. Her words stuck with me as I continued on my journey. With this new mindset, I wasn't afraid to speak anymore. If I made mistakes, I laughed them off and moved forward. I knew I was progressing, even if it didn't always feel like it in the moment. Learning English was now something I looked forward to, not something I dreaded. Now, my friend, I want to share something important with you. If you're on your own English learning journey and you're feeling lost or frustrated, I want you to remember this. Don't give up. Learning a language can feel like an endless challenge sometimes, and you might feel like you're not making any progress. But I promise you, every small step counts. Think about it like planting a tree. At first, you don't see any results. You water it, you care for it, but it takes time. But eventually, with patience and persistence, that tree begins to grow. You see small leaves at first, and then bigger ones. Before you know it, it's a tall, strong tree with branches reaching up high. And when you look back at where you started, you'll realize how far you've come. Learning English is the same way. It may not seem like much at first, but every word you learn, every conversation you have, every time you listen and understand something new, that's progress. You might not be fluent yet, but each step you take is one step closer to your goal. I know how tough it can feel at times, especially when you feel like you're stuck or not improving. But remember, you are not alone. Every language learner has faced those moments of doubt. What matters is that you keep going. Keep practicing, keep speaking, keep listening, and keep enjoying the process, just like I did. The more you practice, the better you'll get. And one day, I promise you, you will look back and say, "Wow, I did it." You'll realize that all the effort you put in, all the mistakes you made, and all the challenges you faced were worth it. So, keep moving forward, my friend. Your journey may have its ups and downs, but every day brings you closer to your goal. And when you reach that goal, you'll feel proud of yourself for all the hard work you've done. You've got this. And now I want to know, how is your English journey going? What are the challenges you faced, and how have you overcome them? Remember, learning English is a personal journey for each of us, and I'd love to hear about your experiences too. Keep going, and don't forget to enjoy the process along the way.